All right, today we are using analog effects, and they're more analog than you might think. All right, so I've been wanting to do this for ages, but I've seen other people do this trick where they kind of re-record their basses playing in unusual circumstances to get different acoustic properties out of that same bass sample. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make a cool bass on my Neutron, which is an analog synthesizer, and then I'm going to record it digitally, and then we're going to play it out on a speaker out in different contexts and record different textures and different tweaks we can make to that recording using just analog processing. So by that I mean actually acoustic processing. I'm going to put it in weird spaces and I'm going to record the weird spaces, and then I'm going to affect all of that and mix it down and make some cool basses out of the analog sound source and the analog processing that we're probably going to do in the garage. So then I added some processing, like some dynamics control and a little bit of processing just to make them brighter. I ended up having to low pass all of this anyway to make it work on the tiny speaker that I had. So adding all these extra highs was in the end unnecessary, but it made it sound better to me as I was working. All right, so the equipment that I'm using for this is a mobile phone, a UE boom, and a portable recorder. And what I'm going to do is pair the phone to the UE boom and then play the sound back on the UE boom and record it with the recorder. First amazing discovery is that the UE boom on top, under some chip packets, sounds awesome. It's got this like really growly alfoil texture. I'm gonna try and record it. We have another winner. Yeah, so I've been looking around for lightweight things that will give off a nice rattle, and I reckon this alfoil tray is awesome. Check it out. Oh, that is awesome. All right, so I've added some tiny nails to the tray, and it sounds completely bonkers. Check this out. I've added some weight to the tray, and it's really changing the texture of this thing, so I'm going to record it. I've found more mileage out of the foil tray. Yeah, everyone in the entire neighborhood has taken this opportunity to come out and mow their lawns while I'm doing this. We're still going to keep going. So I decided to get away from the lawn mowing convention out there, and I figured if one tray is good, let's do 2 trays. All right, but so what about 3 trays? Does 3 trays sound better? So I've added some paper to the tray, and it sounds pretty good, so we're going to record that too. All right, so I took a whole bunch of those recordings, which I had made out in the garage and some of them in here, and I bounced them and I altered them and I cropped them and I processed them a little bit so they sound like... So we got a heap of interesting textures out of those, and some of them useful, some of them aren't, but I decided to make some one-shots out of them. So I made 6 different one-shots up here, and this is just a whole bunch of processing. You could hear that there's like a whole bunch of like nasty top end in some of these, so I had to like duck some of that out. And, you know, in some of them I've just cropped off the top end because it's easier than dealing with weird resonances. Now I've applied a little bit of overdrive, for example, to this layer. So this is without, and this is with. It really pulls up some of those weird harmonics right down in the low mids. And then I've got the original sub channel, so the sub's still nice and clean. And I've layered it with that overdriven. And then some more hissy kind of alpha tray stuff from memory. Oh no, this is more honk. And then together, those 3 sound like... which is a pretty interesting sample. So I've done a fairly similar process for all these other ones. So I've got the original and then kind of a texture layer, which is the alpha tray, I think is this one, although it's hard to say. Oh, paper in a box, along with some overdrive. And then this is the alpha tray. This is another one shot that I've made out of those recordings from earlier. It's a really interesting, full, lush sound. It's a bit weird, I'll pay that, but I had a lot of fun making them. Here's another one. You hear that there's a whole bunch of modulation and movement in there. So that one's built up off kind of more of a wobble. Oh, and this is the very first recording they took. So I'm just moving a bucket around. Obviously with some overdrive. And these are the tiny nails in the alpha tray. They're creating the top end. So without that, and with, this is the 4th. So again, this is the chip packet on top of the speaker. There's a lot of like just noise layer there. And then this is the paper in a tray with some overdrive. Oh, 2. So together that sounds like this. And then I did a few wobble versions. So these are sections where I was moving the original sound around. So the sub sounds like this. And then I've picked other layers and I've used additional filtering to kind of bring them in and out in that same and so together they sound like this, which is certainly a pretty interesting sound. It's nothing like what came out of the Neutron earlier. And this is the second one. Yeah, it's got all sorts of stuff happening in there. That's actually 4 different layers. So the original sub is this. And there's the paper in a... So I think that's just like the low mids part. It's just like a top layer. And don't know what this one's doing. It's got a whole bunch of filtering and an overdrive, and we're notching out some frequencies. We're overdriving it again. Okay, so it's just additional move. That is a really interesting sample. All right, so what did I learn? I learned that that's heaps of fun. And also I think I got pretty good results out of it. I really liked the alfoil tray, and I feel like that was light enough that the UE boom could knock it around and create some really interesting resonances. Those tiny nails really helped as well, although they created such like inharmonic noise that it was really hard to work with the sample. And I guess that's the main thing that I learned from this whole thing overall, is there was going to be so much post-processing required on each of these sounds that it gives you a really nice textured source material to work with, but you do then have to work with it a fair bit to recontextualize it all back into a decent sound. I had heaps of fun doing it, and I would totally recommend that you get whatever playback device you can and then record it doing some weird stuff to get new textures out of it. I really enjoyed working this way. As usual, all the samples that I made will be up on my Patreon, so you'll be able to pick them up if you want to work with a bunch of weird recordings. And I'll be using those recordings as part of my EP that I'm working on at the moment. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.